Well, I did say I would make another video if there were any updates to the YandereDev debacle, but I didn't think I'd be making another video so soon. Because boy, have there been updates. Hello everyone, this is Callimara here, and no, it's not calamari. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new to the pond, go ahead and take a dive. You might like it here. To start things off, knowing my audience and the people who find my videos, most of you are probably watching me as background noise while you're drawing, so if you are an artist watching this video and you're looking for a better way to make money off of art commissions, you're going to love the sponsor of this video, Artistree. If you've been doing commissions for a while or are just wanting to start selling, Artistree is the perfect place to do that. It's completely free to make an account, and you get to keep 100% of the money you make from the pieces you sell without any processing or platform fees. Instead, they'll charge this to the client so artists can keep 100% of their earnings. Artistree will also help you with the boring administrative side with their built-in dashboard that organizes and keeps track of all your commissions, including the status of each commission, and also supports invoices, messages, and more. They also give you chargeback protection to make sure that you won't have to deal with bad or flaky clients ever again. But my favorite part of Artistree is that they are an official partner of Eden Reforestation, so with every sale made on the site, a tree is planted. And so far, they've planted over 10,000 trees. So if you want to make money from your art, support me, and help the environment, check out my affiliate link in the description. Now, let's get back into it. If you haven't seen my previous video on the situation, I highly recommend you check it out for more context and my breakdown of the events that transpired. To summarize, Alexander Mahan, aka YandereDev, who in this video I will refer to interchangeably as Alexander or Alex simply because it annoys him. And Alex here was recently irrefutably proven to have been grooming and exploiting his underage fan by soliciting CP from them and leading them to believe that they were in a relationship. And on top of all that, when it all became public, he not only coerced the fan to make a public statement to defend him, but he even had the audacity to ask the underage fan who he used and exploited to say, "The voice calls were just a friend using an Alexander Mahan AI voice changer, and all the evidence is fake." Just goes to show the lengths he's willing to go to protect his own image while somehow, miraculously, being unable to see the error of his ways and continually blaming it on things beyond his control, when it was very much 100% in his control. Knowing Alexander Mahan and his worm-like tendencies, he is going to squirm his way out of accountability and repercussions if we don't keep holding his feet to the fire. He'll just leave for a few months, maybe a year, and then he'll come back and act like everything has been addressed and fixed, so you shouldn't ever bring it up again because it was just a little oopsie, it happened so long ago. And he just wants to move on with his life when he literally did nothing to fix or address the actual issues people have against him. That's why we need to keep holding him accountable until he no longer has a platform to hurt people with. Because I genuinely believe he's too set in his ways and worldviews to ever change, and his latest WordPress is proof of this, which ironically dropped the same day my video did. But first things first, I'd like to start with some updates. Since publishing my first video, Alexander's victim, who we refer to as Jane, has retracted their statement against Ali McSee's video that first brought these allegations to the public and lifted the copyright strike. They have officially confirmed that the statement was made due to fear and coercion from Alex, as you can see in this TikTok by Decepticami, who is in direct contact with Jane. So we have confirmation that the statement does not reflect their true feelings or perspective on the matter.
YandereDev's victim has finally spoken out, and she has given me full permission to amplify her message. First and foremost, she wants everyone to know that she has been secretly supportive of everything that Ali, Bug, and I have been doing in public. She felt the need to hide this support because she felt threatened by Alex. Behind the scenes, not only was Alex having Jane help him field questions and write apologies for him, But he was also getting her to retract statements with threats of legal action so that he could dodge accountability for what he had done. But the good news is that Jane has cut ties officially with Alex. We want to thank everybody for their concern and filing police reports on Jane's behalf. However, Bug, Ali, and I do have it handled behind the scenes, so there's no need for anybody else to be making these reports. They're just starting to clog up the report system. But the most important thing is that Jane is currently safe. The only reason she made those statements against Ali was because of fear. But now we just need help amplifying her message so that as many people as possible can hear it.
Thankfully, Jane is now safe and has cut ties with Alexander, and I am incredibly relieved that they won't be abused by Alex again. Jane has actually also commented on my video saying that they appreciated me, and I'm so happy that they did end up seeing that video. Jane, if you're also watching this right now, I hope that you are well and receiving the support you need to heal from this. I also hope that the educational material I included in that video helped you and other potential victims to be able to better identify grooming attempts in the future, or maybe even steer clear of it entirely. Though, I do find it incredibly sad that we live in a world where we even need to educate and warn young kids about these things in the first place. Another thing I'd like to mention is that Cameron F305, the person who I brought up in my previous video as being Alexander's most loyal supporter, who I said would probably continue to support him forever, has just messaged and commented on my video to say that as of the 27th of September, they wrote December in the comment, but I'm pretty sure it's just a typo. They have suspended their work on Yandere Simulator and will not be returning to the project unless Alexander is no longer on the project. The reason I felt this warranted mentioning was because Cameron, like Michaela Laws, is a very big component of Yandere Simulator. Not only had he composed most of the original scores of the project, he has also been acting as Alex's voluntary PR person. He was a huge player in redeeming Alexander's image in the love letter catastrophe with Dr. Apis, and I genuinely believe that if it hadn't been for Cameron, Alexander would not have the supporters he does up until now. So to have him walk away now, I think is another large blow that Alex can never recover from, because it's unlikely that he'll ever be able to find anyone else to replace Cameron or protect him to the degree that Cameron does. See, I've been in contact with Cameron ever since my first Yandere Simulator criticism videos started getting traction. Every time I would upload a video being critical of Alexander or his game, he would message me to do damage control for Alexander, where he would openly disagree with and not condone the things Alexander has said and done, or the things that I personally had issues with, but still associate with and perceive Alex positively. And he has done this with literally everyone with a decent following who has made videos about Alexander. I've even mentioned this outright in several of my Yandere Simulator redesign and rewrite videos. Now, I do need to mention that whenever he did this, he had always been nothing but civil and polite and kind and understanding, if not heavily biased towards Alexander and being far too forgiving at best and frustratingly pedantic at worst. Because at some point, you have to wonder if you really mean or even understand what you're saying when you disagree with someone and don't condone their actions, yet you still continue to support them, continue to be their friend, and continue to protect them. Do you truly feel that way if what Alex did and said seemingly changed nothing between you two at all in the past? Sure, perhaps the worst of the allegations can't be irrefutably proven, but he still did and said some pretty nasty shit on 4K. Because as I've mentioned before, this isn't Cameron's first rodeo with Alexander's controversies. He had been involved for the past 4 years. And from years of speaking with Cameron directly, he has always told me that all of his opinions are a result of his own research into the truth, and that he would not be working with Alexander if any of the previous allegations are true. He claims that Alex just sucks at communicating. He has no idea how to maintain a public image, but apparently can function like a normal human being with the people he works with, and that's why they stay. He can be a good person. He's not perfect and he messes up a lot, but he's not a bad guy. And to me personally, this just reminded me of Jane's statement when defending Alexander, of how victims will protect their abuser. While you would be completely justified in criticizing Cameron for needing something so extreme to finally drop the creep, I think it's also important to remember that Cameron was also underage when he first met and started working with Alexander, who 4 years ago already had a large platform on YouTube. Though Cameron has never publicly disclosed his age, he did tell me that he graduates college next year in 2024, and he has been working for Alex for the last 4 years. Well, I'm not saying at all that Alexander has done to Cameron what he did to Jane. I do personally believe that grooming had also occurred. Because why would Alexander hire a minor with little to no experience to work on his project over an adult who did have experience? Why pick someone with so little professional and life experience, if not because you want to have someone who will not question your authority and won't judge you for the things you do and say? Someone innocent, naive, uncomplicated, unsophisticated, trusting, malleable. You're free to disagree with me, of course, but from my perspective, what's going on between Cameron and Alexander feels like a dead ringer to the situation between Adam McIntyre and Colleen Ballinger. Cameron has openly and publicly shared that Alexander would often confide in him, would speak to him about very personal matters. He would turn to him whenever he was in trouble, and he relied heavily on Cameron to do most, if not all, of his PR work. By doing this, Cameron was given a job, just like Adam was promised, that he was paid handsomely for. He got an early jumpstart to his music career, an audience of his own, and even a good scholarship in university. Why wouldn't he see Alex favorably? Why wouldn't he feel indebted to him? Alex gave Cameron everything he had. So how could Alex be bad? A bad person with bad intentions wouldn't possibly do that. A bad person would never show any kindness, wouldn't help you out when you needed them. A bad person would laugh at your misery and only want the worst for you, right? Well, if it were that simple, there wouldn't be so many CSA survivors who struggle to identify that they were even abused and accept that what happened to them wasn't right. They wouldn't protect and stand by their abusers even well into adulthood. The fact is, both can be true. A bad person can do good things and continue to be a bad person. You may be a legal adult now, but you are still more than 10 years apart in life experience and miles more apart in power and influence. You tell me that you are cynical and you don't trust easily, and you've been in the YouTube world well before you met Alexander, but you were still far from mature and experienced, and especially not immune to manipulation. At best, you were a desperate creative who would jump at any opportunity to further his career, who went through lengths to feed his confirmation bias, and at worst, it was because none of what he did was an issue to you and you just didn't care. But from the conversations we've had, I have reason to believe that it wasn't because you didn't care. Because as I've mentioned in my previous video, offenders don't only groom their identified victim. They also groom the wider environment, like other community members, so that when grooming is eventually disclosed, the victim is unlikely to be believed because the offender has gained a position of trust in the community. They have gained the benefit of doubt that others who are closely involved with him will try to defend, if only to justify their support of him and preserve their own perceptions of themselves. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But this is genuinely the only way I can make sense of Cameron's position in this whole situation. And my conclusion is that, Cameron, you may have seen him as your friend, but this was never an equal partnership. And as Alex himself has said in his apology, it was foolish to think an adult could be friends with a child. I know you're going through a lot right now, so I hope that you will seek professional counsel and get the support you need. And I sincerely hope you stay away from Alex and cut him out from your life, because I truly believe that is how you will heal from this. So again, I need to reiterate here to please don't go and harass anyone that is or was involved in the Yandere simulator team. While it's fair to seek accountability for their part in letting the situation get this far and fostering an environment where this could happen in the first place, we also shouldn't be proving Alex right in that the only reason people left was because they feared public harassment. Our attention should focus on Alex and Alex alone as the ringleader and the one and only person who had any control over the project, and most importantly, his own actions. Because you see, after following Alexander for nearly all 10 years of his career on YouTube, I've come to pick up on his patterns and methods to get people on his side. If ever confronted with criticism over his actions or words, Alexander will never directly address the situation. What he will do is create a parable that is similar enough to the ongoing situation, change or twist key parts to be more favorable to him in the narrative that he's spinning, and then contrive a connection between the parable in which he is justified and vindicated to the actual situation. He never actually addresses any of the criticism, and certainly never apologizes, because, as he just explained, there's nothing to apologize for. People always just misunderstand and take him out of context, that's all. You just need to see things from his perspective and no other perspective. See it from this specific angle and no other angle. Because that is the truth. A well-known example of this is his infamous and now deleted hate and shame video. Bored Oranges did an excellent video compiling all of his past controversies and pointing out the patterns within them. So if you don't believe me, I highly recommend you watch the video so you can see for yourself. What this persisting and unapologetic behavior tells me is that Alexander simply lacks empathy for anyone besides himself. Plain and simple. As evidenced in his WordPress apology, the only thing he felt guilty about was that he ruined his own image and reputation, not that he had traumatized and abused an underage fan and tried to force them into silence. But that's not really a fair thing to say because, well, Alexander didn't even write that apology by himself. Nope, I just found out that he got Jane, his victim, to help him write it. That's right, he got his victim to help him cover up his tracks and vindicate himself. You know, this is starting to get to a level of ridiculous where if I saw this in a movie or a show, I would go, this is so unrealistic. And this is not a result of an isolated upbringing or homeschooling or not getting enough social interaction or just being bad at communication because guess what? I was also homeschooled and had an extremely isolated upbringing and was abysmal at social interactions until I finally got to college. But you don't see me trying to groom underage fans or being a complete degenerate online. And I get that the reason people bring this up for consideration is for nuance and perhaps because they don't have the life experience to speak on it, but I do, and I say it's complete BS. And that's why it's a personal pet peeve of mine when people use isolated background as an excuse or explanation for Alex's shitty behavior, because it stops him from taking accountability for his own actions and treats it as though it's something that's simply beyond his control. Because it's not. It's not that he can't change, he just ignores all valid criticism because he has such a frail ego that he would rather seek out people and communities that validate his bad behavior so that he doesn't have to. So let's see what Alex has to say for himself this time. Assuming he didn't get another 16-year-old to write this statement as well. Who knows, maybe it's a 14-year-old this time. Right off the bat, the title, Moving Forward. Oh no, Alex, there is no moving forward for you. This whole thing ends right here for you. Everyone who helped you move forward before has left you, and you have no one but yourself to blame. Hopefully, the only place you're moving forward to is either a prison cell or a rehab center. I personally prefer the former. First paragraph in, I already love how he considers his behavior as self-destructive, because again, it implies that the only person who was hurt in this situation was himself. It completely brushes aside the notion that there were actual victims and places emphasis and concern only on himself rather than the people he's hurt. We're seeing his egocentrism front and center, where the only person that matters to Alexander is Alexander himself. See, egocentrism is a term to describe excessive interest in oneself and concern for one's own welfare or advantage at the expense of or in disregard of others. What all that nerd talk means is that egocentric people think the entire world revolves around them and that they are the most important person in the world and therefore everyone else around them doesn't matter. Believe it or not, this is actually a normal experience we all go through at some point in our lives. But most people usually grow out of it by the age of 6, also known as the pre-operational stage, according to Piaget's stages of cognitive development. Or heck, if you want to be a bit charitable, there's also adolescent egocentrism, which occurs between ages 11 and 16, as kids learn that other people have their own separate perspectives and experiences. But Alexander is 35 and still thinks this way. Evidently, his game isn't the only development that's been delayed. So if you wouldn't trust a 2 to 6-year-old or 11 to 16-year-old with your money, you shouldn't trust Alexander with it either. But back to his WordPress. Alex claims to have finally pinpointed the cause of his behavior, which is incredibly unwise lifestyle choices that have caused his mental health to deteriorate massively over time.
Honey, it was ruined when she bought it. Yeah.
Sure, man. Like people have not literally been screaming this at him for years. This just sounds like Alexander's version of, I was in a dark place. This is like watching Dora the Explorer asking the audience where the river is, and you scream the answer at her, but obviously she can't hear it because it's pre-scripted and she has to come to the answer herself. Funny how it took Alex soliciting an underage fan for CP and getting public backlash for him to finally see the error of his ways. Also, again, I need to reiterate that tons of people get isolated, overworked, and burnt out every day, and none of them are going around grooming kids. I also hate how he immediately makes the logical leap that burnout equals, grooming someone. That's not how it works, dude. Like, grooming someone is just something so easy that can happen accidentally. That's just like a bad decision. A bad decision is spending your life savings on an NFT or eating nothing but dairy despite being lactose intolerant. What you did gets you permanently labeled as an S offender on your criminal record. It's the same vibe as saying, oh, I accidentally cheated on my partner, or I accidentally robbed a bank. I don't know how that happened. Do you not think people know how many steps it takes and how many decisions need to be made to do either of those things? Oh, well, I guess that's what he means when he says a person capable of nothing but bad decisions and a mistake machine. He just effed up every single step of the way, huh? But I'm probably looking into this too deeply because obviously this apology is geared to the child fans who wouldn't know that. My bad. In the next paragraph, we see that Alexander has been seeing the feedback telling him on how he can do things better, including my favorite, see a therapist. He's just been choosing to ignore all of them up to this point, I guess. But since this is about his plans moving forward, clearly that's something he will finally... Spending more time outdoors, reducing the scope of the game, handing off development. Where's the therapy? Where's the one actual good suggestion that would help him get better? Man, I literally said in my previous video that this asshole won't go anywhere near a doctor's office, and I hate how right I am. Now, why this is a big issue to me is because when you are isolated, you get into a very set way of thinking that is pretty much impossible to break out of without outside perspective or professional guidance. That's to say, for someone who always had an incel mindset even before they started working on the game and perceives women as actual objects and not feeling, thinking human beings with no regard for their psychological development, just their physical development, standing outside for a few hours a day and touching grass isn't going to magically undo all of that. Alexander needs actual professional input to even begin unpacking this shit. We've seen how well things pan out when he tries to take matters into his own hands. Tiny build. But, of course, that would require him to confront some hard truths about himself that his fragile ego just can't take. Or he might just land himself a nice, long stay at a psych ward, which, honestly, would do him and everyone around him a world of good. Anyway, because he's Alexander Mahan, of course he's going to go on an anecdote, which genuinely serves no purpose other than humanizing himself and trying to show his audience that, actually guys, I'm totally a good person. Because just look at how many lives he's saved. And I'm not going to knock that. It's a genuinely good thing to be able to prevent the loss of a life, but to bring it up here, right now, when his fans are actually beginning to question his character, it's extremely manipulative. And in my personal opinion, he's trying really hard to exploit the cognitive dissonance that his fans must be having. They've only ever seen him as a misunderstood, introverted, hardworking person because that's how he's always presented himself to them. So they'd have a much harder time accepting that the person they think is a good person is actually a predator. Because, surprise, surprise, kids and young people are not equipped to process complex ideas like that. And he's taking advantage of that by reinforcing what they, and therefore by extension, he, wants them to believe. It's textbook grooming. I also want to reiterate again that most of his solutions do not address the actual issue here. Handing off game development to someone else, reducing the scope of the game, touching grass, and finding a better work-life balance, all of those things will improve his game development, not his character development. It's not going to magically overhaul his entire mindset and make him a safe, functional human being when I'd argue he never was in the first place. Alexander needs professional help, and the only person who will disagree with this, even now, is him. Because all stepping away from development is gonna do is give him time to think about how he can avoid being caught the next time. In my personal opinion, the burnout didn't turn him into what he is now. It simply made him sloppy in hiding it. And to be honest with you, I'm glad he got burnt out, because I think it was needed. It was necessary. In my opinion, his entire evolution on YouTube is not a downward spiral like he claims, because that would imply at some point he was just a regular person who made an attention-grabbing game that blew up because the right people played it, and through obsessive dedication to the game, he eventually lost himself in the negativity. That's just what he wants you to believe. But Alex is well known and well documented to have a deep-rooted history and pattern of degeneracy. He literally started his internet career on freaking 4chan, for God's sake. So when he made it big on YouTube, he knew he needed to build a completely new, sterile image because the audience that the big gaming YouTubers brought to him were not 4chaners, and he is aware that what he thinks and says would put off a lot of people, and that's why he only behaves that way around people he thinks won't question it, like impressionable young kids. But bits of his true self would leak out every now and again, causing controversy over the years. Eventually, he got too burned out and complacent, and accidentally let the mask slip. That was the mistake, the accident he was sorry about. Not that he hurt people, just that he shattered his own image he worked so hard to build. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in the pond for a while. I really appreciate the support and attention you guys gave my last video because I think it's so important that the message be spread to as many people as it can. Once again, if there are any updates, I'll try and make another video, but I would really rather just go back to my usual content, and I'd really appreciate it if you check that out too. I want to give a big shout out to my lovely pond dwellers on Patreon for supporting me and my channel. I usually do art, so if you want to see more from me, then follow me on all my social media. If you want to see something I'm actually passionate about, check out my Wildward series here on YouTube, because that will make me extremely happy. All the links are in the description, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye!